Peace, family. Vie Darling, the cosmic queen, and your intergalactic interpreter. And let's chat. Let's have a little chit chat about some things that I feel are coming up. It's definitely. I started doing a reading, and I'm doing my skincare, so those are the Foley effects you're hearing. But I started doing a reading for the new moon that we're experiencing, I believe today or in a couple of days, and I stopped because I just don't like being surveilled, and I know that I am being, and I know that I have been being surveilled, so I just decided not to do it. But when I started it, all the themes are coming up. So I kind of wish that I had continued with it and finished it, but it is what it is. But I will say that the bigger themes that I picked up were around our everyday things, like everyday patterns, habits, behaviors that are sabotaging our success and undermining our personal power. Capricorn was implicated in a pretty big way because Pluto is in Capricorn and Scorpio is also activated. I don't remember why, but it was. Mercury was implicated. There's just a lot of energy coming up this week around this. And because Scorpio is implicated, this actually makes me want to talk about vampirism. And when I thought I'm gonna do a little recording, I was gonna talk about vampirism, or I was triggered to talk about something because of vampirism, but then I just forgot what I was going to talk about. But what I think I want to talk about is ableism in our community. What I have to say is that I do believe that those of us who are neurodivergent, if you are an outlier, if you are an earth angel, rainbow child, indigo child, witch, ethereal, what have you, if you have supernatural abilities, you are neurodivergent. And the thing about neurodivergence is that it's just a cluster of symptoms that make it easier to treat whatever's going on with you. And because we're manifesting in a world that is not built for us because we are here to build it for us, it can feel very hostile. So it's going to manifest in a way that is, probably pitting us against the social order. And I can already feel this vampiric force trying to weasel its way into my energy. So that is exactly why I did not want to do any more readings from where I live because I do not have any real privacy here. But I'm gonna do my best to still speak on what needs to be spoken about because it's important. So I want to talk a little bit about this experience of neurodivergence and there are really common characteristics amongst us all that are really important and need to be acknowledged. And some of these characteristics, manifest in a way that might look like schizophrenia. It might manifest in a way that looks like autism, etc. And one thing that I downloaded early on in my journey is that sometimes an energy is way too big and too powerful for the lineage that it incarnated into. And the genetic biological material is not strong enough to hold such a fiery energy. That's why, if you think about it in terms of like House of the Dragon on HBO Max, the Valyrians, they're not all dragon riders, but they all have silver hair, right? The Master of the Sea are the Black Valyrians, if you will. I think 𝗪𝗏 or 𝗪, I don't remember what his name is, but his family. And then the Targaryens are the dragon riders. And we know that dragon are seraphim. Seraphim, and Bashar was saying something about dragons, and I kind of have to agree, but not fully. I do believe that there are actual like dragon beings, like dinosaurs probably. There's no real evidence that they breathed fire, but whatever. I do believe that dinosaurs are dragons, and whether or not they breathe fire is inconsequential to me. I do think that there's a correlation there, especially because dinosaurs are related to birds, and modern day predatory birds are very much related to dinosaurs. And we know that for a fact, actually. So we know that there were flying dinosaurs that flew, and whether or not they breathed fire, that could be allegorical, metaphorical, what have you, but we know that that is a thing that could have happened. It could have happened. Anything can happen. We don't know shit about this modern society doesn't fucking know anything. They have to prove everything, and it's all the stuff that they said wasn't true. More and more every day comes out to be true, and most of the things that they said were true and was taken for granted as truth. Every day, more and more is coming out to prove that it wasn't true. So, if you are actually scientific, if you are actually an intellectual, if you actually value information and empiricism, you would take that into account very greatly. But people don't, because they don't actually value information. They just value seeming intelligent. And that's why I say that neoliberals are overwhelmingly anti-intellectuals. In any case, why they had to keep it in the family, and I am not saying that I'm supporting their marriage or breeding practices, but I am saying that genetics do matter when it comes to carrying the seraphim frequency, because it is a very high vibrational frequency, which means it moves very fast. If you are moving, if you're accessing layers of consciousness, frequency of consciousness that is moving almost at the speed of light, it's gonna be moving very quickly, the frequency. I just don't know really how to explain this, but I get into this thing where I kind of try to over-explain things like science, but I'm not a fucking science teacher. I took university level astronomy, and I had a textbook, and I had to get a lot of help from Crash Course Astronomy, and I would encourage you to do the same. I have a playlist on my YouTube called Science is Fun, that has crash course astronomy videos on it and videos from quantum physicists about the quantum reality, and people will be like, oh, that's how you know that somebody's not real. And it's like, no, it's actually not how you know that somebody's not real, because if you don't know anything about quantum mechanics, then maybe you should just shut the fuck up, you know what I mean? But some people feel empowered to be loud and wrong and stupid. In any case, if you're coming from, seraphims are as high vibrational as can manifest in the material realm. These angelics, anything higher than that is just too high. So in the ethers, while some of us were preparing to come to Earth, we had to go through lifetimes that would lower us so that we would be able to come to Earth. And we just had to do stuff that would ensure that we would be able to manifest in Earth, like the Earth realm, because we couldn't be too high vibrational. And those of us who are, I would say those of us who are the highest frequency, they're not really going to seem like how you think they are, because at each stage of our plan, people, beings from higher dimensions, were manifesting on Earth, which is why certain consciousness manifested on Earth at the same time as the internet, because the internet is a physical manifestation of the ethers. And that's why some of us are just very internet people, because we are ethereal beings. We feel at home on the internet because it is most like how we operate in terms of consciousness, and that's why we love the internet. And yeah, we're probably pretty socially awkward. We're probably, because why wouldn't we be? There hasn't been anyone like us on this planet, or in the Earth realm for millennia, if ever. But I would say for millennia, to be on the safe side. That I'm sure of. I keep saying in any case, but that's a new thing that I've started saying. I don't know why. But either way, if you are at seraphim frequency, which is, let's say, a waveform, it peaks and then it dips down. I forget what the dip down is called, but it has its highs and lows, and I've been thinking a lot about this lately, and it goes, whereas a lower frequency vibration might have 2 waves in a second, a higher one might have 10 waves in a second. Cycle, I can't remember what it's called, it's in my notes, but you might have 10 of those, and that's the difference. If you are doing 10, you need to have a body, a vessel that can hold 10 cycles in a second. You cannot manifest into a body that only holds 2. So this is part of why some bodies are not able to hold the frequencies that are manifesting in them. And I believe that the Targaryen family is an example of the lineages of the angelics, the seraphim, and as they fell from grace for whatever reason, we know that over time the dragons began to be born more feeble, and the rulers began to be beset with madness, like the Mad King, even Daenerys, and we're going to see the same thing that happened to Daenerys happen to Rhaenyra, because they have this ritual that they do where they kill the queen, so that they stop us from having that Kundalini awakening. And that's something that I learned from the occultist that I follow on YouTube. You can do your own research about that. If you're not going to study occultism, don't fucking try to enter the conversation, because you're going to humiliate yourself, and then you're going to be mad and you're going to act out. And when you act out, you're going to have to face karmic retribution that you're not ready for. So why don't I take a moment to warn you? Don't fucking do it. Have some humility, grace, and self-respect and dignity, and stay out of conversations that you're not ready for. You want to play in the kiddie pool, you don't belong with the big dogs. That being said, someone needed to hear it apparently, but that being said, let me take a second to get back on track, because I am sensing interference in this message. Whatever, they were no longer able to hold that frequency, and that's why they lost to dragons. They lost the dragons, they lost the throne, they lost the crown, and of course it had to be reinvigorated, it had to be reborn through the queen, Daenerys. Why? Because they killed Rhaenyra. But ultimately, the vision that Aegon the Conqueror had was actually of Daenerys. It wasn't of Rhaenyra. That's what I've surmised so far. Anyway, so I think I've talked about the White Walkers on here, but I don't really want to get into that right now. What I want to talk about is, I do believe that some people chose to incarnate into lineages that they knew, some beings chose to incarnate into bodies or lineages that they knew could not necessarily handle their power, because karmic tests, karmic debts to be paid, and it is to progress humanity overall. Because what you need to understand and understand is that just because somebody doesn't communicate the same way as you, just because somebody is disabled in the ways that we see as normal, doesn't mean that they are not still powerful or valid. If you take the time to pause and slow down and get on their level, you might find that they are more brilliant than you could imagine. Like, to slow down and empathize with a dog or a cat so much that you can begin to have a nonverbal understanding with them. Like, and I'm talking about like actually being able to communicate, not just like, oh yeah, I know their cues, I know that's what they do when they want this thing, which yes, that's important and that teaches us empathy, but I'm talking about actually, like, I've been working for a couple years now, at least a year, but probably a couple years, on developing the ability to communicate with animals, and I'm getting better at it. And I now do know, like, when I can actually communicate with them. I had to find where in my body am I communicating with them, what chakra, what part of me is able to communicate with them. And it makes sense that it would be the heart chakra and not the throat chakra, doesn't it? Doesn't it make sense that it would be the heart chakra? And so this has helped me to develop a stronger heart chakra and a more powerful heart chakra, because they can't speak like we do, because they haven't developed the throat chakra in the same way. But so there are a lot of parents of children who are diagnosed with level 3 or tier 3 autism, and they say that they can communicate with their children telepathically. And I believe them 100%. When I was a kid, I didn't really like being around people. You know, I just exhibited symptoms of autism, as we call it now, but back then it would have been called, it was referred to probably, you know, I always just say autism because I don't know if it was actually Asperger's. I don't know if it was Asperger's that I was diagnosed with, but I'm pretty sure that they said autism. And the thing is that Asperger's, it's all now called one thing because Asperger's is just autism, but without a mental handicap. Before, the criteria for being diagnosed as autistic was that you were mentally challenged as well. Now, everybody who exhibits these symptoms is on the spectrum. And, you know, I exhibited these symptoms because I had powers. And I was on a mission. You know what I mean? Like, I just read all day, every day. I was making art, I was playing outside. But what I'm known most for, people know me most for reading. I was most known for being an avid reader. And I often won challenges and contests, of course. But yeah, consuming information, that was my thing. And I loved to go on the computer. Man, did I love going on the computer. If you tried to keep me from going on the computer, I was gonna fight you. And I'm serious. I fought other children to ensure that I would get to go on the computer. I might even fight you at your own house to get on your computer at your own house. Why? Because I'm an ethereal baby, and that's where I felt I belonged. But I was on a mission to collect data and information. I was activating myself, and I was being activated and initiated in realms unseen by unseen beings. And that's been my whole life. My whole life has been dedicated to this mission, which is tough. It's a tough existence, but it is what it is. And I'd much rather observe than be a part of things. And then also, I am highly sensitive, obviously, so I don't have a lot of space or time for interpersonal engagements that don't actually do anything for me. I'm not the kind of person who's like, oh, I really need to be around people. Actually, I don't. The opposite. If you are not, like, I'd rather be alone in my own company than around people that do not fill me up, period. And it just is what it is. And I think that more of us need to become okay with that. And that's what's actually going to take me into the ableism. The thing is, it's really actually, it may be true that we are supernatural beings. It is true. My kids are going to be, they're going to have the same characteristics as I do, or different ones, but they're going to be quote unquote neurodivergent. And the karmic gate that I had to pass through to be able to actually be their parent is to accept that I am autistic. And not be like, oh, well, maybe it was Asperger's. No, it's autism. And that's okay. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. And if somebody says that there's something wrong with that, then there's something wrong with them. And we have a problem because they're ableist. I see a lot of this rhetoric where it's like, you know, I'm not autistic, I just am more sensitive, I'm better, da 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 da. That's not the point, because you are still making it very clear to me that you hate yourself for being different.
until you alchemize the trauma around being different and accept what you are, you're not going to fully possess your power, and you're going to be dealing with this karmic cycle, and you're going to be dealing with this trauma around like not fitting in and being different and being othered until you accept it. That's just the long and short of it. That's just how it goes. And I don't make the rules, I'm just saying. So I've seen people talking about, like it as a superpower. That may be so, but that also takes away from the fact that we experience tremendous suffering in this world that is not built for us, and then it is in fact built against us. It's built to disable us. It's built to cripple us. Because there are ways to live in this world, on this planet, where we would thrive. Actually, it's possible. But it is overwhelmingly not happening for so many of us because of the way the world is built. And the more that we sit here and stigmatize autism instead and be like, that's my superpower, Yeah, maybe your superpower, but let me talk to you about the X-Men, because they're the perfect example. Scott Summers cannot take his glasses off, or he will shoot lasers out of his eyes and potentially kill everyone. In fact, that is what was happening in the original Warner Brothers films. Or actually, it might be Universal. It might have been Universal. But the original X-Men films from the early 2000s, I think in the third one, or the second one, I think that's when they found him, if I'm remembering correctly. It's been a long time since I've seen them, or maybe that's when Jean Grey told him to take his glasses off. But oh my God, why don't we talk about Jean Grey? Because this is exactly what I'm talking about. The Phoenix Force was a force that pervaded the universe, or traveled through the universe, looking for a quote-unquote worthy vessel to latch onto. A vessel that could hold it, that it could graft onto. And it found the most powerful psychic in the world. No, not Dr. Xavier, not Dr. Charles Xavier. No, it found Jean Grey. And it grafted to her, and it became the Phoenix. She became the Phoenix, and when she became the Phoenix, she actually couldn't hold that power and energy, so she kind of lost her mind. And what happened was, if I'm remembering correctly, it's been a while since I brushed up on my Marvel lore, and since I saw the original films, which I'm pretty sure were more accurate to the Marvel comic universe than the Marvel cinematic universe by Disney. But she died. She destroyed everything, and she died. And that's when she said goodbye to Scott. And when they find Scott, when they find him, which is different from this scene, he has destroyed his classroom. He's destroyed everything with his lasers. But anyway, she like, Scott tells her, no, don't, please, and she just, like, I think she says goodbye, and she, like, is essentially destroyed. And what happens is the Phoenix force within her regenerates her, and she comes back to life. And after she comes back to life, she's kind of evil, and she becomes the villain, and they have to fight her. I'm pretty sure that it was Scott who ended up killing her, but I don't remember. I do remember that she and Aurora Monroe, aka Storm, had to fight one another. I do remember that, and they kind of had, like, but that is in part because power plays. But yeah, like, didn't bode well for Jean, it didn't bode well for Scott. And then let's talk about Rogue, who couldn't even touch a boy without almost killing him, which was something that I think someone said that to her to insult her. And a Paquin played her, I'm pretty sure. And she dated that frosty guy. I don't remember what his name was. Maybe it was Iceman or something like that. And yeah, he almost died. She couldn't touch anybody, actually. So when we talk about people having superpowers, it's not all hunky-dory Superman, okay? Let's actually be clear about what it really is. And what it really is X-Men. Right? So, who else? You know, it may be that we have superpowers. That may be so. And for me, I know that's true. But that also means that I don't get to live a normal life. It also means that I have to show up for myself in a different way and support myself in a different way. That's what it also means. Okay, so when we are thinking about ableism and internalized ableism, you're not ever going to live your best life as long as you're sitting here acting like being autistic is the best thing in the world. Everyone I know who has supernatural abilities struggles and suffers. I know people who have done things to try and get their powers turned off, and they were successful, actually. But those people are mentally unwell, because that kind of thing will kill you. I know people who have who are active in addiction because they don't want to handle their powers. I personally do not stay friends with people who do not train their powers. I will not be in relation to anybody willingly like that. If you're not constantly alchemizing, then there's really nothing for us to connect upon, in my opinion. 'Cause I am, and I have no choice but to. Rather, the alternative would be unbearable. Okay? So, what else? When you're saying these things, remember that you are just promoting ableism because you're not teaching people how to live. Instead of, you're actually enforcing stigma. Oh, you're not autistic. You have a superpower and everyone else is fucked up. Yeah, well, whether or not everyone else is fucked up, you are autistic and you have to learn how to live in this fucked up world in a way that you can actually survive. So it's actually extremely counterproductive. You're not helping people. You're not teaching them to love themselves no matter what, which is unconditional love. What you're saying is, you're just enforcing you're only worthy, you're only valuable, you're only going to get your needs met if you're not autistic. And let me tell you something, it's already hard enough for those of us who are high masking, apparently lower, I'll say lower support needs, because low support needs makes it seem like we don't have any. No, lower support needs, especially if we have comorbidities like substance use disorder, ADHD, and your neurodivergence may be ADHD, but there's still stigma with that. Less than autism though, but still there's stigma with that. Could be something else like BPT, you know what I mean? It could be CPTSD. Could be any of those things. And you're sitting here and you're making it that much harder for somebody to get the help that they need because you're feeding into their ego by being like, oh, well, you're not autistic. I'm not. What would make you believe yourself that is what you are? If you were tier 2 or tier 3, if you could barely function on your own, is that what you need in order to accept yourself? Oh, well, it could be worse. Well, it's already pretty bad. So even if it could be worse, just be grateful it's not. And also accept that it is still bad. You're going to keep trying to be normal until it kills you. And it will. Whether it's because of an OD or SI because of burnout, or, not getting treated, so then you go into psychosis and harm yourself in some way that could have been avoided. All because of stigma. And why do you think that stigma exists? When in certain indigenous cultures that still are alive and kicking today, you'd be living the life that you're supposed to be living, doing what your calling is. And it's not being stigmatized. Why do you think that stigma exists? For this exact reason. So you're playing into the enemy's hands. You're giving them exactly what they want. So if you're going to say, well, maybe we're autistic because we have superpowers, yeah, I think for most of us that's true. And also, it's okay to be autistic. And also, here's some resources. And also, this is how you can live a meaningful life well, where you're not suffering. Here's how you do it. The only way that I've learned how to do it outside of magic, because magic will not solve everything. And we have to learn how to live in these bodies, is the clinical shit that they teach. You don't know that shit, it doesn't matter. Oh yeah, like, you know, I have magical powers, but they're killing me, and I don't know how to master them. Whoa, wait, have you ever heard of meditation and breath work for regulating your nervous system? That might help you when you are downloading something really heavy and big. It's a little bit too big for you on your own to deal with. Have you ever heard of that? You might want to try it. Regulate your nervous system, because what happens to a lot of us is that we start to heat up because our internal processes are speeding up because we're downloading some really high vibrational shit. You might want to drink more water. Y'all can figure all that shit out for fucking solar flares, but you can't fucking figure that shit out and accept that shit for neurodivergence. That is because you are ableist. Period. And how are you going to expect everybody else to accept us when you won't accept us? You expect everyone else to accept you, you won't accept you. Even the people who do accept you, you're not going to want to fuck with them because you don't accept yourself. You feel me? So that's the long and short of it. That's just what I wanted to communicate. And I guess it really does come back to this stuff about the new moon, because at the end of the day gotta end. I'm just joking. At the end of the day, you know, we're only as strong as our weakest link. That's what I'm channeling. We teach others how to engage with us, and if we're not respecting ourselves, we set a precedent for that, and it's going to be quite difficult for you to find somebody who's willing to respect you regardless of the fact that you do not respect yourself. It's going to be pretty hard, because that takes a lot of empathy, humility, maturation that most people do not have. That's why I choose to still do my best to treat people with respect, regardless of the fact that it is evident to me that they do not have it for themselves. And they probably don't even realize that shit. Okay. It's just something that it feels really important to share, because, you know, it's likely your everyday habits and patterns that are sabotaging you. And you know, if you're transgressing your taboos, do you even know what your taboos are? If you're living against your chi, your life energy, your spirit, your soul, then wondering why shit's not working out for you. Shit's not working out for you because you're not working out for you. You're not doing what you gotta do. You feel me? That's on you. Who's gonna do it? It's not really anyone else's responsibility. And although I do believe that in community, it is our responsibility, because we co-regulate one another as social primates, as social creatures. Number one is you. Everybody's responsible for themselves except for children, and we're responsible for children. Otherwise,
You're responsible for your damn self. That's why you take on your karma. What I eat don't make you shit, and what you eat don't make me shit. So why the fuck am I worried about what the fuck you're eating? It's none of my business. That's why I tell y'all, like, honestly, the goal of life in 𝗂𝗏 is to know yourself. And you can't know yourself if you're too busy minding somebody else's business. That's what got y'all fucked up, a lot of you. And I know I say y'all in this sense, but it's not about any one individual. It's really, a general you. But whoever needs to hear it is going to hear it, you know what I mean? Like, at the end of the day, and if you're going against your taboos and you're living a life that is antithetical to your well-being, what do you expect? You need to accept it. You need to accept the truth. The first step of recovery is acceptance. The first part of the solution is accepting that there is a problem. If you know that almost every time you drink, you black out and get into trouble, you need to accept that that is a problem and that you can't drink. Once you accept that, then we can do the work of getting you to stop. But as long as you believe you don't have a problem, a lot of the time people do believe that they have a problem, but it's like very close to the surface. They just choose to ignore it as much as they possibly can, which is why bad shit keeps happening to them. So that is all that I have to say. I'm sure y'all are all like, oh my god, get off of your high horse. But it's not a high horse. It's really just like, it's just the truth. And for me, that's what matters, is the truth. And accepting life on life's terms is going to be the thing that helps you to live your best life, ultimately. So, all that being said, I hope that helps someone. I hope that you all enjoyed this transmission. It lasted a lot longer than I thought it would, 47 minutes. Yeah, I hope that it was helpful. And if you like, comment, and subscribe, I would greatly appreciate it. Alright?